A sealed steel tube. 50 men. The air gets heavier by the hour. Water is measured by the mug. Above you, patrol aircraft and ships hunt for you with radar and sonar. When they find you, they drop depth charges. You are 20, an electrician's mate, on a Type 7C boat out of Lorient. Lower deck, hot bunk, no privileges. Diesel fumes stain the throat. Battery acid bites the nose. Condensation drips from the ceiling onto your blanket. The floor is slick, the corridor 1 man wide. You move sideways, shoulders scraping valves and cables. You speak in a whisper, or not at all. Every clang can be a mistake, and a mistake can kill the boat. You will want fresh air after a few hours, but surfacing risks a flare, a spotlight, a bomb. You cannot run. You cannot call for help. You can only wait, hold your breath, and count the seconds between distant explosions. This is the reality of the North Atlantic in 1941 to 1943. You will not last a day. Here is the promise. We will break down life aboard a Type 7C in the North Atlantic and point to the exact pressure points where even a trained person cracks. Not in theory. In the corridor you squeeze through. In the mug you cannot refill. In the silence you must not break while explosives go off above you. You will not last a day because air and water are always short, space is always contested, and sleep is always interrupted by aircraft and escorts. You cannot fight while submerged. Reality first. Time and place. 1941 to 1943, North Atlantic. Departure from occupied France. The run through the Bay of Biscay is a corridor of searchlights, radar, and patrolling aircraft. You are 20, an electrician's mate, on the lower deck. Your tasks are batteries, motors, lights, bilge pumps, and the constant war against moisture. The boat is diesel-electric. On the surface, the 2 diesels drive the shafts and charge the lead-acid batteries. Submerged, the boat runs on electric motors, and the battery level drops with every knot and every minute. Ventilation is limited. Carbon dioxide creeps upward. The air warms and thickens with diesel residue, sweat, and damp clothing. Every decision is a trade, speed versus battery time, ventilation versus stealth. Crew size is about 50 men, all packed into a hull just over 60 meters long and 1 narrow deck wide. Hot bunking rules the night. You sleep in the bunk someone just vacated for watch, and someone will take it when you are called away. 1 cook serves the entire crew from a cramped galley wedged between pipes and cables. 1 corpsman carries a small medical kit and nothing close to a hospital. Letters home exist only under permission and censorship. Radios stay silent unless the captain authorizes a brief message burst. Water is for engines and cooking first. Washing is off the table for days, sometimes weeks. Discipline is not decoration here. Silence is a survival tool. Tools are wrapped in rags to muffle metal on metal. Orders travel by whisper, gesture, or a hand on a shoulder. Crash dives are timed in seconds. Depth is managed by valves, tanks, and the feel in the deck plates under your boots. You live with routines that do not forgive mistakes. Battery checks, hydrogen monitoring, motor inspections, air tests, trim corrections. You learn the smell of warm electrical insulation and the hiss of a valve that is not quite seated. You learn to fold your body sideways to let a messenger squeeze past with a slip of paper for the control room. You also learn the rules that will break you. You do not wash. You do not raise your voice. You do not light a cigarette when the boat is buttoned up, no matter how much you want the nicotine. You do not question the captain in front of the crew. You do not use the head when depth and pressure say no. You do not expect medicine if your tooth explodes with pain or your stomach turns inside out. You do not expect dry clothing. You do not expect privacy for 1 minute of the day. The first night out sets the pattern. Surface at darkness to charge. North Atlantic wind cuts through your jacket on the bridge. Salt spray coats your face, and the temperature bites. A lookout shouts a bearing, and you are already down the ladder. Hatches slam, lights go red, then out. The boat takes her angle, and your body knows the angle before your eyes do. You count the seconds until the hull eases into deeper water and the noise settles to the hum of motors and the low rush of air. Then the silence command arrives. From that moment on, you feel your own breath as a resource that must be spent carefully. Start with the mug. One mug of fresh water is not yours. It belongs to the boat. Most of the water goes to cooking, to the diesel preheaters, to the batteries and machinery that keep the hull alive. What is left is measured by the ladle. Washing your face is forbidden. Brushing your teeth is a luxury from shore. You learn to wipe your skin with a damp rag once in days, not minutes. The salt on your lips stays. The film on your tongue stays. The smell on your hands does not leave because the water to scrub it away is fuel, range, and survival. Food is planned to the kilogram. Fresh bread and fruit survive the first days only. After that, the menu shrinks to tins, hard biscuits, preserved meat, and soup. The cook works in a corridor cut by pipes. He is half bent all watch, one stove, one pot, and a rack with mugs stacked like helmets. The galley runs even when the floor tilts. On the surface he can breathe. Underwater he sweats and waits for the captain's permission to light the flame. Fuel fumes hang at head height. He saves every drop from boiling potatoes to stretch the next soup. He saves the fat from a can to smear on a pan that has not seen proper soap in weeks. Storage is everywhere. Sausages and onions hang from hooks in the forward compartment, inches from torpedoes. The air there is warm and humid. Everything absorbs smells: diesel, human sweat, insulation, rubber hoses, damp wood. Bread molds. You tear off the clean parts and keep going. The cook cuts the green away until the loaf is gone. Tins dent and rust. Labels peel off, so he chalks numbers on the lids. Coffee is an ersatz brew made from roasted barley or chicory. It is hot and bitter and keeps hands busy, but it does not feel like coffee. Sugar exists, but it is counted. Milk powder is for the first days. After that, black is the rule. Dishwashing is a routine of corners and compromises. You do not fill a sink. You do not run a tap. You swirl hot water in a shared bucket and pass it along. Sometimes you wipe your mess tin with a cloth that was washed yesterday and smells like the last soup. The cloth never really dries. Condensation drips from the overhead onto your spoon. Nobody throws out a mug for a crack. A mug with a crack lives on as a ladle. A fork that bends is hammered straight and bent again. Eating is a logistics drill. There is no table for everyone. You eat in shifts, kneeling by a pipe, standing with a shoulder on a valve wheel, or sitting on a guardrail that rings when the hull flexes. You learn to keep one hand for the boat and one for the bowl. In heavy seas, the soup is a hazard. If the boat rolls, you brace. If the boat drops, your spoon hits your teeth. You do not complain when it is the same soup again. The cook has one burner and a locker of tins. Variety is an idea, not a plan. The night watch wraps the lesson into your body. 3 a.m. You come off the bridge with a face raw from spray and wind. Down the ladder, hatch dogged, red lights dim. The cook hands you a tin mug that is hot enough to burn. The soup tastes of cabbage and grease, and that is fine because it is hot and salty, and it anchors your stomach. You stand to drink because the deck is moving. You do not sit because standing gives you one more degree of control if the boat lurches. You hand the mug back and leave your personal ration of water on the counter. It is a quarter mug. You could drink it. You do not. The cook needs it to start breakfast for the next section. You know this because yesterday the pot ran low and 3 men did not get a full portion. Smells build in layers. A tin is opened and the air shifts. A sausage is sliced and the fat hits a hot pan and climbs into the passageway. A man walks by with diesel on his sleeves from the engine room. The odor does not rotate with shifts. It accumulates. You try not to think about it because you cannot do anything about it. You try not to breathe through your mouth because the air is wet and warm and puts a film on your tongue. You swallow it anyway. Water policy shapes behavior. You do not shave. You do not wash your hair. You do not stand over a basin and splash your face awake. The captain authorizes a wash day only when stores and weather allow, and in this period it does not arrive. A rag dampened with a few spoonfuls is your sink. A capful of water is your toothbrush, if you dare use it. Many stop brushing entirely after a few days. Gums swell. A molar that was quiet at home starts to throb. You think about it more because the boat is quiet. You swallow more ersatz coffee to numb it and feel your stomach answer back. At depth, the galley itself is throttled. Flame control is strict. Ventilation is low to keep noise down. The cook times his work to the battery routine. He knows that a minute of open hatch at the wrong time bleeds air the crew needs. He knows that steam fogs gauges. He learns to make soup that does not burn in a rolling pot, with a flame turned to almost nothing. You learn to eat before your watch even if you are not hungry, because the next chance may be 6 hours away. Small rules extend the range. Bread is rationed by the slice. The cook counts them. He will not give you an extra piece even if you ask quietly, because he has to make it to a date on the captain's plan. Fatigue makes you hungry at random hours. You will go to your rack thinking about a biscuit. You will not get up to find one. The passage is blocked, men sleep, and the noise of a locker opening is not worth it. You tuck your hands under your armpits and wait for a sleep that comes in short drops. You understand why the veterans hoard. A man keeps a chocolate bar in a sock near his bunk. Another keeps a cube of bouillon in a pocket for a bad watch. The cook pretends not to see small private stashes because morale needs anchors. But there is a line. Steal from a common locker and the boat notices. The boatswain notices. You do not want that attention. Your break point arrives in the mirror you do not have. It is day 8 since you last washed more than your face. You run your tongue over your teeth and the taste is stale. Your skin itches under your wool. Acne rises on your neck where the collar rubs. You reach for a tap that does not exist. You imagine a shower and can picture the steam and a bar of soap and a towel. Then the boat shudders as the bow hits a wave on the surface run. The captain orders all hands to stations. The cook slams the stove shut. The hatch to the control room closes. You put the fantasy away and go to the motor room to check a brush that squealed on the last turn. The rag in your pocket is damp from last watch. You wipe your hands on it and it leaves them greasier than before. You will not last a day with this rule set if you grew up with taps that run on demand. The pressure point is not taste or menu monotony. It is the instruction that water is for the boat, not for you, for as long as the patrol requires. Your habits from shore have no place here, and your body complains in small, constant signals you cannot satisfy. That is why the quarter mug you left on the counter at 3 a.m. feels like a sacrifice out of proportion to its size. It is not just water, it is proof that the hull decides, and you must agree. Space is not a room, it is whatever gap you can claim for a minute. You sleep on the lower deck in a hot bunk that another man warmed an hour ago. The mattress is thin, the blanket damp at the edges. Your locker is a bag tied to a pipe. Your name lives on a metal tag above a valve wheel. If a mechanic needs that valve, he pushes your bag aside without a word, and you pretend you did not see it. The passage is 1 man wide. If 2 meet, 1 turns sideways and breathes in. If 3 meet, someone backs up and counts steps because there is no place to turn around. Moisture is permanent. Every surface sweats. The hull is cold, the air is warm, and the difference condenses on pipes and frames until drops form and fall. Clothes never dry, socks sour in a day, and then become part of your skin. You pin them to a line by the diesels, and they come back hot and wet with a gloss of fuel. You try the forward compartment, and they come back cold and wet with a smell of garlic from the sausages. Nothing is neutral. Everything absorbs something. Temperature is an argument between compartments. In the engine room, the air is above 35 degrees Celsius during surface runs. Your shirt sticks to your back. You tuck a rag in your collar to stop it rubbing the skin raw. Move forward to the torpedo room, and your breath fogs in front of your face on night patrols. The bow takes spray and wind when the boat runs on the surface, and the metal sends that cold into your bones. You learn to carry layers, wool under a jacket at the bow, undershirt only at the engines. You are never dressed quite right for where you have to be next. Sanitation is a schedule, not a right. There is a single head that works reliably only when depth and trim allow. If the boat is below a certain depth or in a maneuver, the head is locked. If the boat is at battle stations, it is off limits. You read the situation in a glance at the indicator and the angle of the deck. Often the answer is wait. In a storm, wait stretches into hours. You learn to time your body to the boat's routine. When the timing fails, you feel it in your spine long before anyone says a word. Fire and flood are not opposites here, they are neighbors. The galley flame is small but jealous of air. A pan left an inch too long can smoke up the passage and trip a warning. A towel dropped near a hot surface smolders before anyone smells it over the diesel film in the air. Water, meanwhile, arrives uninvited through glands, packing, and hatches that seal well, but not perfectly. The bilge takes it all. The pumps run. The electrician's ear, your ear, hears the change in pitch that says the intake is fouled. You kneel in a wet patch that never dries and clear it with a wire while the boat rolls under you. Corrosion is a second crew. Metal blooms with rust in folds you cannot see, and any scratch becomes a rough edge that catches cloth and skin. Paint flakes into your blankets. Rubber gaskets swell and then shrink. Drawers stick. Hinges squeal unless you tend them. You carry a pocket tin with a smear of grease and a short brush and become protective of it like food. One dab saves a hinge from announcing itself to the entire ocean during a silence order. Bunks are not bedrooms, they are shelves. You climb in without sitting first because there is no headroom. The ceiling is a hand's breadth above your face. A valve handle is at your ear. If the boat takes a down angle, your feet push against a bulkhead to keep you from sliding. If she rolls, your shoulder hits the guardrail that keeps you from falling out. The man before you left body heat and a print in the mattress. The man after you will find yours. You do not bring boots into the bunk. You tie them in a bag and hang them because the deck has standing water, and you learned that lesson on the first day. Pests are not a campaign, they are a fact. Wool attracts hitchhikers from shore, and once aboard, they find warmth and stay. You rarely see them, you feel them. The itch wakes you in the dark, and you keep your hand still because scratching would shake the bunk and touch the pipe and wake the man in the rack above. You decide not to move, and your skin teaches you a new kind of patience. Air moves when the captain allows it. Ventilation fans have a rhythm the crew knows by heart. When they slow to reduce noise, the air thickens. When they stop, the boat feels smaller by half. You carry your own smell with you between compartments. Your breath fogs a gauge. A drop falls from a pipe onto your cheek. You wipe it away, and the rag leaves a darker streak. Now the short night scene. You come off watch with legs that still think the deck is pitching. The boatswain's whisper sends you forward to sleep. The corridor is blocked by a figure standing with arms out to brace against a roll. You wait and count to 10 with him, then slide past sideways and apologize with a nod. In the bow you find your bunk. It is warm. That is good. The blanket is damp. That is normal. You slide in with your jacket on because the metal at your back is cold. Above your head, a line of sausages taps the casing softly with each roll. Condensation taps faster. The overhead is so close that your breath rebounds. You tuck your hands into your armpits to save heat and to stop them from touching the cold pipe an inch away. You lock your body into a shape that avoids the valve handle and the hanging cable and the low frame that the last man banged his head on when the captain called a drill. You drift until the hull creaks and a drop lands in your ear. You wake, shift, and feel the urge to use the head. The indicator is against you. The boat is at depth and trimming for silence. You count minutes and tell yourself you can wait until the next watch change. The hull groans again and your stomach flips with the roll. Someone up the passage retches into a bucket and your throat tightens in sympathy. You breathe through your nose and hold still. This is where you crack, not on a battlefield, on a shelf, in a room that does not have corners, only curves. The break is not loud. It is a quiet decision that you cannot sleep, cannot move, cannot use the head, and cannot find dry cloth for your neck. The cold and the heat take turns. The damp never leaves, and the boat does not care that your body has its own schedule. If you grew up with a door you could close and a dry bed you could turn over in, this is the hour that teaches you the new rule. Privacy is not a right, it is a rumor. Work is a clock that never stops. Watches run in 4 hours on, 4 hours off. Helmsman, hydrophone operator, lookout, messenger, electrician. You sleep in fragments and wake to a whisper, a boot on the sole of your foot, or the clang of a valve. Tasks repeat until they blur. Battery-specific gravity checks, hydrogen sniff tests, motor brush inspections, bilge pump strainers, fuse boxes dry wipe to keep condensation off contacts. Silence rules shape everything. Wrenches are wrapped in cloth. Panels close without a click. Orders travel by hand signal and eye contact when the boat is at quiet speed. Training goes on even when you are sure you cannot keep your eyes open. Drills for crash dive, drills for fire, drills for flooding, drills for a jammed plane. You run the same sequence until it is muscle memory, because when it is not a drill, there is no time to think. You strap in at stations. You count seconds on a gauge because voices are forbidden. You mark voltage in a notebook that is already damp at the corners. You learn where to put your feet when the deck is at an angle, so you do not slide into a valve or kick a cable tray. Injuries are simple and constant. Bruises from frames, skinned knuckles from covers you opened in a hurry, pinched fingers in latches that jump when the hull flexes, burns from a steam line or a hot motor casing, a fall when the boat rolls in a beam sea and your hand finds air where a handrail should be. Nothing serious alone. Serious in total when sleep is short and you are moving fast in a narrow tube full of hard corners. The roster includes men who left school last year, 19, 20. They learn the routine fast or they do not stay long. You show them how to cradle a lamp with 2 fingers so it does not bang a bulkhead. You show them how to read the hydrophone operator's face to know if the contact is closing or drifting. You point at your ears and then at the deck to say, "Feel it." Words are for off watch. Off watch is short. One day, one scene. You drift for 10 minutes in a warm bunk, a hand on your shoulder. Exercise. You swing out, boots on, jacket half buttoned. In the control room, the captain's jaw is set. No raised voice. The planes answer. Ballast blows and then stops. You feel the change in the floor under your soles as the boat takes a new angle. You drop to the motor room. You put your palm near a brush to judge heat. You mark it. The hydrogen meter ticks up half a point. You log it. The silence order holds. The galley flame is out. The air feels thicker. The drill ends. You get 40 minutes in the bunk before a real call. Aircraft. Crash dive. Lights dim. You do it all again, faster. Your breakpoint here is not a single emergency. It is the layered noise you cannot turn off, the hum of motors, the whine of a fan that is overdue for grease, the slam of a wave on the casing heard as a dull drumbeat, the creak of a frame when the depth changes by a few meters. These sounds build a wall that sleep cannot cross on schedule. 4 hours off sounds generous on paper. On the boat, it is a fragmented 90 minutes. The rest goes to lines, food, checks, and standing in a passage waiting for 2 men to slide by. You start the next watch already behind on rest, and there is no weekend to catch up. Health is a ledger with no emergency exit. There is one corpsman with a small kit. He has bandages, disinfectant, pain tablets, eye wash, a few sulfa packets, a thermometer, and a stethoscope. He can stitch a cut. He can splint a finger. He cannot remove an appendix. He cannot pull a tooth. He has no blood, no operating table, and no way to get you off the boat when you are 2 days into the Atlantic and hunted from above. Common problems pile up. Seasickness on the Bay of Biscay surface run lays out 1 in 3 men on day 1. Stomach cramps follow food that sat too warm in a humid compartment. Skin rashes rise where wool rubs and never dries. Heat prickles in the engine room. Chill bites the bow. Ears ring after a near miss. Hearing fades a notch with each pattern of charges. A low-grade headache blooms when the carbon dioxide climbs and ventilation is cut for silence. Diesel exhaust and battery fumes linger. When seawater touches the battery well, it can kick off a chemical reaction that makes the air bite at the back of your throat. The answer is immediate action and more silence. Dental pain is a special kind of trap. A molar starts on day 3. By day 6, it has its own pulse. The corpsman has clove oil and a file, not a dentist's chair. You chew on the other side and swallow hot drinks fast to outrun the ache. Sleep cuts the pain only until a drill or a real alarm kicks you back up. You do not ask to turn back. You just bear it and count days you cannot see on any calendar. Night case. A stoker spikes a fever and cramps hard in his right side. The corpsman suspects appendicitis. He draws a line on the man's belly to track tenderness. He gives fluids and tablets and watches. The captain stands in the passage a minute, listens, and goes forward. There is no helicopter. There is no diversion to a friendly port that is not watched. The nearest safe harbor is days away, and aircraft sweep the route. The boat stays on plan. The fever breaks after 12 hours. Maybe it was a severe stomach infection. Maybe the appendix calmed. You do not know. You only know that if it had gone the other way, there was nothing more to try. Your breakpoint here is knowledge, not panic. Knowledge. You understand that there is no doctor coming through a hatch. You understand that a serious injury is a sentence, not a case number. You learn to inspect your hands for cuts as if they are components, to dry your socks by any means, to drink when told, and to keep your head clear because mistakes happen first to the tired and the sick. That vigilance costs energy you do not have. It is a tax on every hour, and the bill arrives when your body wants relief the boat cannot provide. Security is not a wall you hide behind. It is a race you are always losing by minutes. Outside threats stack up: patrol aircraft with radar, night searchlights that erase darkness, destroyers with sonar, and fast corvettes that fill the water with listening gear. On the surface, the boat is faster and can breathe, but a single radar return brings an aircraft with a flood of white light and a stick of bombs. Submerged, the boat is safer but slow, half blind, and tied to the battery clock. The enemy chooses when to start. You choose how long you can endure. Orders are quiet and absolute. Letters are written under rules and read by sensors on shore. Radio is a short burst on a strict schedule, if at all. Every unnecessary word is a risk. Disobedience is not a debate. The captain's authority is complete because the tube you live in cannot carry two strategies. Doubt stays behind your teeth. Disputes end at I. You may grumble in a whisper on a mattress shelf. You do not grumble on watch. The cost of a mistake is immediate. A dropped wrench becomes a clang that becomes attention from above. A late lookout call becomes a crash dive started seconds too late. A sloppy valve cycle becomes a hiss at the wrong time in the wrong water column. There is no safe margin. The surface run at night through the Bay of Biscay is a gauntlet where the margin shrinks most. Aircraft sweep, escort carriers appear. Your world is the black oval of the bridge and the cold wind that tears water out of your eyes. The rest is risk. Mini-scene, aircraft. One word then, alarm. The bridge empties. You slide down the ladder and the hatch bites shut above your head. Lights drop. Orders turn into hand signals. The bow drops. The planes take their angle. The boat pitches as ballast floods. At periscope depth, the hull hums. Then the captain orders silence. The motors slow. The boat becomes a still object in cold water. You hear the sea more than you feel it. You count in your head with no idea what you are timing. A ping comes through the hull like a hammer on a rail. Another. You taste copper. You think about the layout of the charges above you and if the pattern is wide or tight. You hold your breath against the reflex to breathe faster when fear adds speed to your heart. Then the series begins. Thuds. The hull flexes like a living thing and frames complain. Lights flicker. A gauge needle jumps and comes back. Everyone is strapped in at stations. No shouting, no bravado, just breathing you can hear, and the small sounds of metal under strain. The attack pauses. The captain waits. The hydrophone operator traces a bearing with a finger on his knee. The captain shifts his own weight, and the planes answer. The boat slides a few meters deeper. Another pattern walks past, and you count again, not because counting helps, but because it keeps your lungs steady. Your break point is the waiting. You cannot fight back. You cannot run. You cannot even talk. You are a passenger inside a sealed tube that answers gravity and pressure and command hands on the planes. If your instincts tell you to do something, the correct move is to do nothing louder. Minutes like this carry more stress than a day of labor. Modern habits break on that silence. Environment is not background. It is the opponent you cannot see. Air quality is a number the captain watches and you feel. Carbon dioxide inches up and heads thicken. Oxygen slips down. The sweet metallic smell of the battery room leaks into passages. Diesel hangs low after surface runs and clings to wool. The fans throttle back for stealth and the air grows heavy. Conversation slows, then stops. A man yawns and another yawns with him. The corpsman passes word to sip water even when no one is thirsty because headaches breed mistakes. Condensation turns every surface into a slow drip. Mold finds cloth and stays. Leather mildews. Valve wheels bead with moisture and then rust along the edges you touch. You wipe panels with dry rags that stay damp. Paint peels. Rubber seals stiffen and then soften. You learn to accept the smell of wet metal as your normal. Storms make the surface run a punishment shift. The North Atlantic gives you wind that hurts through a jacket and spray that soaks you through in a minute. In winter, the spray freezes on the casing and rails and turns the boat into a skating rink. You lash yourself to the bridge frame and keep your eyes on a black horizon carved by white water. Hands numb, jaw clenches. A lookout calls a wave, and you duck a second late. Cold water punches your torso and takes your breath. 2 minutes later, you are down the ladder, hatch sealed, and the air below decks feels warm and stale enough to taste. Your skin steams under your jacket, and the wool turns clammy. The smell hits you like a wall: fuel, bodies, cabbage from the last soup, a faint bite of acid from the battery well. You take one breath, two, and your body asks to choose between two bad options: freeze on the bridge or sweat in the tube. Plumbing is not a comfort system, it is a hazard chain. The head is sealed when depth or trim says no. Waste lines run to tanks that must be handled with care. A wrong valve order floods a small space with a big smell, and everyone lives with the result until the next surface window. The corpsman burns disinfectant tablets, and the air takes on a chemical note that fights the diesel and never wins. You learn to breathe shallow through your nose when you pass the head. When seawater reaches the battery compartments in the wrong way, a chemical wake-up call follows. The air turns sharp. The order to ventilate collides with the order to stay silent. The captain chooses. You wait. Your throat tightens and eyes water. Then the fans come alive and the boat sucks in outside air. The relief is instant and cold. The price is noise. You hope the price does not invite company. Mini-scene. Night ventilation run. The diesels throb and the boat makes speed on the surface. You stand your turn on the bridge, a bundle under a coat, neck bent against the wind. The sea breaks over the bow and sheets across the deck. You keep your mouth closed because salt water slaps like a hand. The captain gives a bearing to steer, and the helmsman below answers. 10 minutes later, you are below, the hatch seals, and the fans spin down. The air warms. The smell is back. The cook opens the galley for a quick hot drink. You wrap hands around a mug you do not own and feel fingers again. Then the quiet order arrives. Fans off. Flame out. The air stops moving. In one watch you have been frozen to the bone, and then stewing in damp air you can taste. Your break point is the whiplash. Your body does not adapt that fast. The switch from ice wind to wet heat and back again in the same hour strips comfort out of the dictionary. Sleep does not fix it. Food does not fix it. Only land fixes it, and land is weeks away. Money does not travel with you. At sea there is nothing to buy. Pay accumulates on paper. Bonuses add lines to a ledger for patrols completed and risks taken. Cigarettes and chocolate exist as morale items and barter, not currency. Shore leave is short and rare. When it comes, ration cards on land decide more than cash. Shops are thin, queues are long. A friend in supply is more useful than a full wallet. You spend on what the boat does not issue or what you trust more in your own hands. A better knife, a stronger torch, spare socks, a new razor, a bar of soap for the first shower in weeks. Uniform repairs are on you in time and sometimes in money. A torn sleeve is a needle and thread on a bunk shelf while the boat rolls. A lost button becomes a safety pin you hope the boatswain does not see. Post costs more than the stamp. Letters take weeks, pass censors, arrive late, or never. Parcels are lottery wins. A cake from home becomes a pile of crumbs with a smell of a kitchen you can only imagine. Tobacco is trade. A man who does not smoke saves his ration and swaps it for a favor: a better watch, a spoon of jam, a clean undershirt pulled from a rare parcel. After a patrol, you step into a port with money in your pocket and nothing you really want to buy. Food is rationed, boots are rationed, even time is rationed by orders and a departure date. You stand at a counter and take soap, razor blades, and stamps. You look at a display with a bar of chocolate behind glass that costs more than it should. You pay anyway and walk out with a small paper bag. You eat half the chocolate in 3 bites and save the rest for the boat because you know what the nights taste like. Your breakpoint is the discovery that pay does not convert to comfort, not at sea, not on land under rationing. You cannot buy quiet air, a hot shower when you want it, 8 hours of sleep, or an empty room. Money is numbers while you live by minutes and valves. The gap between what you earn and what you can change is a weight you carry back down the ladder when the next patrol starts. Hierarchy is the only stable shape. You use ranks, not first names. Orders go one way, corrections are public and brief. The captain's word is final because split decisions split boats. You learn tone control. You do not argue in a passageway. You make a case in a whisper when asked, and then execute. That is not culture. That is survival with 50 men in a tube that cannot host a debate. Privacy does not exist. You dress with your back to a pipe to make a corner that is not there. You eat with a man's shoulder touching yours. You try to sleep with boots thumping inches from your head. You fall ill in sight and smell of others. You swallow pride with soup because there is nowhere else to put it. You learn to keep your voice low and your comments shorter than the space you occupy. News is distant and delayed. Radios on board are not for shows. Letters carry old stories and miss context through the sensor's black pencil. You hear rumors first, then orders, then nothing until land. The outside world becomes a list of last month's events you cannot check. Isolation is not only distance, it is the missing option to verify or to talk it out loudly. Superstition fills gaps you cannot close with facts. A lucky coin tied to a pipe, a ritual sip before a watch, a quiet touch of a frame on the way to stations. Nobody admits it out loud. Everyone notices when a ritual is missed and a drill goes poorly. The pressure of constant threat makes patterns feel like protection, and you hold on to them because nothing else bends to your will. Mini-scene. You sit with a pencil stub and a field card. You write to your mother. You cannot write dates, positions, ship names, operations, or anything that confirms where you have been. You write that you are well, that the sea is cold, that the food is enough, that the crew is fine. You cross out a phrase about bad weather because it hints at time and place. You hand the letter to the petty officer. He scans it and hands it back with a tap on the missing salutation. You add, "Dear Mother," and try again. You seal the envelope and know a stranger will read it next. Your breakpoint is constant observation without malice, not a guard with a truncheon. The eyes of your section chief, the ear of a lookout who hears you talk too loud, the expectation that you will behave as part of a machine for hours, days, weeks. If your life includes choice and room and personal time, this is the rule that bends you. Not because someone yells, because nobody has to. The shape of the boat enforces the rule for them. Here is the short end state. 3 reasons you will not last a day. A closed environment with chronic shortages of air, water, and sleep. Every breath, every mug, every minute of rest is managed by the plan, not by you. Your body asks. The boat answers when it can. Unbroken stress from sudden, lethal threats you cannot fight while submerged. Aircraft, radar, sonar, and charges arrive without warning. The only correct response is silence and stillness while you wait. Cramped, wet spaces with no medical safety net. Damp, cold, heat, corrosion, and minor injuries add up. One serious illness or wound has no evacuation and little treatment. You learn to endure pain without a date when it ends. What we undervalue today is simple: the freedom to breathe clean air, wash in warm water, and step away into personal space when your head is full. These are not luxuries. They are the foundations that keep willpower from snapping under the weight of routine and fear. Remove them, and even a fit, trained person begins to fail within hours.